Hello.
To claim that title. A while back, I asked you guys who is already the best Elden Lord. The choices I gave were between Godfrey, Radagon, Placidusax, and yourself. By no surprise, most of the votes went to ourselves being the best Elden Lord, and as funny as this is, it actually has some truth to it. We did go on to defeat all of these previous Elden Lords in a fight. So based on Godfrey's own words on what it takes to be Elden Lord, we really are the best choice.
A crown is warranted with strength. Brave, tarnished. Thy strength befits a crown.
The only argument I see with this is that we aren't really fighting these previous Elden Lords at their full strength when we enter the picture. Radagon seems to be used as a puppet by the Greater Will. His body is quite literally breaking away, trying to hold the fragments of the Elden Ring together, and while still a difficult fight, I don't believe we're fighting him at his strongest. Same goes for Placidusax. Obviously, he's lost 3 of his heads in his battle against Godfrey, and is only capable of existing in a realm beyond time.
Nice. My dude.
Keep him from fading away completely, which is very similar thematically to Radagon the more I think about it. With Radagon holding the Elden Ring together, the Greater Will had to call back the Tarnished to the Lands Between to collect Great Runes to mend the Elden Ring. Of these many Tarnished called back, this obviously includes us and Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, who led the long march of the Tarnished after they were banished from the Lands Between by Queen Marika.
In Marika's own words, my lord and thy warrior, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
Now, I'm not sure if Godfrey is limited with his power when we're fighting against him. Obviously, Sirach is holding back Godfrey from becoming his true warrior self, Oralu, but Godfrey takes care of that problem, leading into the second phase of our fight with him. There could be an argument made that he isn't as powerful as he once was. The opening cinematic depicts Oralu skewered with swords, spears, and what looks like him being crucified, with the guidance of grace between him and Sirach, awakening him from his death in what looks to be the Badlands outside the Lands Between. However, this is exactly what Queen Marika wanted Godfrey and his warriors to experience during their banishment, to grow stronger.
Then, after thy death, I will give back what I once claimed. Return to the Lands Between, wage war, and brandish the Elden Ring. Grow strong in the face of death, warriors of my lord, Lord Godfrey.
This is likely where Godfrey was in between us defeating Morgott, burning the Erd Tree, releasing Destined Death, and coming back to the base of the Erd Tree. He was awakened by grace and called back to the lands between, just as Marika foretold. He then finds Morgott defeated next to the throne, and he looks down in remorse towards his omen son, realizing that he had been running the show as the last of all kings of Leyndell, since no one else in the family would be able or willing to take that responsibility. His son fades away in his arms, revealing a new path of grace for Godfrey to follow, which points directly at us. It's actually beautiful. Godfrey was banished for losing his side of grace, or losing his ambition to fight and conquer all who opposed their order, because he had defeated everyone that needed to be defeated. I cannot think of a bigger motivation to fight than looking at the person who killed your son. The greater will needs the strongest to take the mantle of Elden Lord, to fix what has been broken. Now all that is left is to determine who is the strongest, Godfrey or you, and we all know how that ends, at least if you made it that far in your own playthrough. I still think it's amazing that it can be inferred that if a player has given up on their playthrough, meaning they had stopped playing the game before completion out of frustration or whatever it is, then that tarnished character can be seen as just another failure in the cycle of things, another hollowed, pathless tarnish that had given up on their guidance and didn't live up to the expectations that were put on them, never to reach their full potential. That was the case in the Dark Souls games and really is no different in Elden Ring. I absolutely love that aspect of these games. Now let's think of a different scenario. Let's say all of these past Elden Lords were out of the picture. When I asked you guys, the community, who you thought deserved to be Elden Lord between Morgott and Radahn, the votes were close, but ultimately landed on General Radahn, receiving the majority out of almost 20,000 votes. This vote actually sparked an interesting debate, and honestly at this point, I'm not even sure who I'd choose. Morgott is obviously the most devoted demigod to the Golden Order in the most tragic of ways. Since birth, Morgott has been shunned by his family and the very order he chose to follow, banished to the sewers below the city to live out the rest of his life with the rest of his fellow Omen, so that he couldn't blemish the perfect family image he was born into. Even so, Morgott created his alternate persona, Margit, and leads the Knights Cavalry to find and deliver death to great warriors, knights, and champions who might defy that order. He tries to stop you many times from obtaining a great rune because he knows why the Tarnished have been called back to the lands between, and he knows Godric likely isn't powerful enough to stop us. It's kind of sad how a shard bearer is mostly seen as a pathetic madman, even by those who follow him.
He had an ugly heart, an uglier countenance, and met the ugliest of ends, eh?
Morgott created this alternate persona because, in my opinion, he hates himself. He hates the name Morgott and the blemish that that name holds on his family.
The thrones, stained by my curse, such shame I cannot bear. Thy part in this shall not be forgiven.
I made a video called Like Father, Like Son that goes over the fates of both Morgott and Godfrey over a year ago now. I believe that video still holds up and is one of my favorite videos I've ever made, so you should go check it out if you haven't already. In short, Morgott would never stray from the Order as Elden Lord. He cared for it even after he was treated like an outcast and monster by his own family. Even though, based on his father's reaction to his death, not everyone thought he deserved the fate that he did suffer. All he wanted was a family. But since he couldn't have that, even with his own Omen twin brother, he became what his lost family needed. A king that wouldn't stray from its ideals, no matter what. Morgott, likely using his alternate persona as Margit, was clearly a powerhouse during the Shattering War, even besting a younger, much smaller Radahn in battle and obtaining his own powerful Great Rune during this war. Morgott tries to stop us on our journey at every turn because he knew we would cause a major change in the world that he finally had some power in. Eventually, he finally falls to us and comes to the realization that we are all going to fail in our mission.
We are all forsaken. None may claim the title of Elden Lord. Thy deeds shall be met with failure.
Now let's talk about General Radahn, the proclaimed strongest of the demigods during the Shattering War.
This fortress houses only the vanquished. But when the stars align, we celebrate. A war festival honoring the last battle and death of General Radahn, the mightiest demigod of the Shattering and bearer of a great rule.
Unfortunately, Radahn is no longer the powerful general he once was. As we know, he has been infected with the Scarlet Rot after his epic battle with Malenia. He has now lost his mind and wanders what was once the Caelid Wilds, eating corpses of fallen friends and foes, and howls at the sky like a dog. Before this, Radahn was a powerful warrior that seemed to idolize Godfrey during his time as Elden Lord. Radahn's golden armor has depictions of Godfrey's Lion Regent Sarash, and while I doubt Radahn followed the Golden Order fully, I do believe that he idolized that power that a warrior can portray through battle, just as Godfrey did on his tear through the lands between to defeat all who opposed what they believed in. As we discussed earlier, a crown seems to only be warranted with strength. Strength is the key to becoming Elden Lord, and Radahn has no shortage of strength. Born from the Queen of Sorcerers, raised in the Academy, and trained by all Bastard Lords in the town of Sellia, Radahn mastered gravity magic to a point of being able to hold back the literal stars themselves. Powerful enough magic that even Ranni couldn't break his spells. He was also a great leader, inspiring his men so much that they stayed in Caelid to continue to fight against the rot that has infected their land and has driven their once great general to madness. I haven't mentioned this in a long time, but Radahn is still my favorite character in the game to this day. My video going over his story last year is the most successful video on this channel because it really is an honorable story. I still remember Elden Ring's first story trailer that showed us the battle between Radahn and Malenia during the Shattering War. I can't get over the scene where Radahn allows Malenia to put her prosthetic arm back on before attacking her. This shows Radahn's confidence and honorable nature in battle, even during an all-out war where everything that they know is in a complete state of chaos. Walking into Redmane Castle is amazing, listening to a choir of Radahn's men sing in unison to celebrate their general and hopefully give him what he wants, which is just an honorable death.
At last, the war festival has ended. Brave champion, you have our gratitude. The celebration was spectacular. General Radahn is surely pleased. Festering with rot and crippled by madness, all he wanted was an honorable death.
Also, I know everyone already knows this, but the fact that Radahn refused to give up his horse Leonard, even when he started to grow into his giant frame and mastered gravity magic to hover slightly over his horse, is still just so adorable to me. It shows that he cares deeply for those that follow him. All of these actions indicate a strong leader that culminates a presence that clearly many people wanted to follow in the footsteps of, even if Radahn doesn't even have feet at this point. I think both of these demigods are deserving of the title of Elden Lord for all the reasons that we have discussed today, but we already know that it only takes strength to claim the crown. So just like our fight with Godfrey, they would have to fight each other to determine who is the strongest. Again, we can get a glimpse of that in the opening cinematic, and it looks like to me that Morgott had the advantage over Radahn during this battle, but of course Radahn isn't at his full strength at this point. It's a required challenge for the strongest to fight, just like it is between Godfrey and us. So I think it's a coin flip who would win this fight. My bet would go to Radahn, even in his infected state of mind. Again, you guys seem to feel the same as we discussed. But if you feel differently after watching this video, let me know down in the comments. That's all from me today. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.
You probably know more about Elden Ring's lore than you know about the game itself, because this From Software title is notorious for its story, its world building, and its devoted players who quite honestly obsess over the details, which unfortunately the game gives sparingly. But I understand now why people are so invested. Elden Ring is one of the most lore-dense video games I've ever played, and while I was learning all about it, I couldn't help but get completely overwhelmed by how abstract, confusing, vague, and also how brilliant the story can be. That's why in this video we're going to cut the BS. I'm going to explain the entire story of Elden Ring and its new DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, in as succinct of a video as possible while making it actually understandable through modern day analogy and a breakdown of the evidence we have of the facts of the world, its characters, and its rules, based mostly on item descriptions, dialogue, and trailers, which will give you the context you need to understand the full picture or die in the depths of Reddit trying. So, strap on in, grab your runes, your katanas, and your flasks, and let's get right into the full story of Elden Ring. While this game has tons of vague and confusing lore that is significantly up to interpretation, we're going to focus on what we do know. Long ago, something called an outer god, specifically this one known as the Greater Will, sent his lovely daughter, the
Is this happening to you? Then you're in the right place for video game training. In this video, I'm going to show you where to get Mohg's shackle that you can use in the Mohg Lord of Blood boss fight. If you want to be an absolute legend and support the channel, then make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. My name is Azavar or Azza. Now let's get into the video. First of all, I'll just show you where we are starting from on the map. So we're in the capital city and we are at the Avenue Balcony Site of Grace. And then from this Site of Grace, we want to head in this direction, down the stairs, through these doors. Watch out for these enemies. So keep on running past until you get to this dragon's wing at the end here, and then we want to kind of like jump over or go behind the dragon's wing and then follow this path down. Keep on following this around. We have to climb over this kind of like rubble stuff here. So jump on up. And there will be a few enemies kind of waiting for us down this way, so just be careful. So head on down. And then we're looking for a well, which is kind of like tucked away around this corner here. So head on over to these ladders. Head on down the well. Just be careful of those enemies, of course. Keep on following this pathway around. We've got to pop these doors open. Okay, so are at the Avenue Balcony Site of Grace, and then from this Site of Grace we want to head in this direction, down the stairs, through these doors. Watch out for these enemies, so keep on running past until you get to this dragon's wing at the end here, and then we want to kind of like jump over or go behind the dragon's wing and then follow this path down. Keep on following this around. We have to climb over this kind of like rubble stuff here. We'll jump on up, and there will be a few enemies kind of waiting for us down this way, so just be careful. So head on down, and then we're looking for a well which is kind of like tucked away around this corner here. So head on over to these ladders, head on down the well. Just be careful of those enemies, of course. Keep on following this pathway around. We've got to pop these doors open. Okay, so now those doors are open, we follow this pathway around. On this section here, just watch out for the rats. And then there'll be a door at the end. So pop this bad boy open, head to the left, jump on down. Watch out for these omen enemies that are in this section, because these guys pack a massive punch. And we want to head in these double doors that are open, grab the Site of Grace, pop a cheeky rest at that Site of Grace if you need to. From here, we want to head left, watch out for this omen, then head right. Keep on following this around. Watch out for these imp enemies, as they're a massive pain in the butt. Keep on following this around. Watch out for this imp that jumps out of the crates there, or boxes. And then we want to drop off to the left, then go to the lowest point here and drop off again. Watch out for these lobsters in this area with the insane levels of accuracy. So what we can do is wait a second for that lobster to kind of like go the opposite way. If you want to be going right, we've got a surprise imp there. We want to be going right there, or boxes. And then we want to drop off to the left, then go to the lowest point here and drop off again. Watch out for these lobsters in this area with the insane levels of accuracy. So what we can do is wait a second for that lobster to kind of like go the opposite way. If you want to be going right, we've got a surprise imp there. We want to be going right, following this wall. This lobster will pop up. What you can do here is kind of like run and roll past, just to reset. That lobster's position, because you will get in the way. What you can do is run through that section in the wall there. There's a Site of Grace at the bottom. You can pop a cheeky rest at the Site of Grace to reset the lobster so he's not in your way. Then run back up through this section in the wall again. There's a lobster that popped up before, and then just follow this around. If you crouch, the lobster will pop up, but he won't bother you, so don't worry about him. And if you grab this item here, this is Mohg's shackle. Hopefully you enjoyed this video and it helped you out in some way. If it did, remember to like, subscribe and drop a comment. You can check out all the other content that I make at azavar.com. The link is down in the pinned comments. That's azavar.com. You can now become a YouTube member and unlock an awesome loyalty badge that displays next to your name, as well as emotes that you can use in your comments and my live stream chat. On top of this, you'll also be financially supporting the channel, which will allow me to keep creating YouTube videos. Click the join button to become a YouTube member today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
A mother of fingers plummeting on a shooting star down to the land between. It also sent, probably very much later on, a star carrying something called the Elden Beast. The mother of fingies is essentially a Discord server owner. Or you see, she would then go on to bestow the land with the most horrifying motherfuckers you will ever witness. A bunch of fingers in the form of two main types. Finger creepers, which are just trying to finger people, I guess, and then the two fingers, which are basically Discord moderators who are dished out to be the guides and translate the words and wisdom of Daddy Greater Will, or maybe just the mother's will, who was informed by Daddy Greater Will. I don't know, but the two fingers were trying to communicate to the inhabitants of the lands between. Now, on the other hand, the Elden Beast, the thing that presumably came on a later shooting star, would eventually become the Elden Ring, which isn't exactly a ring as you and I understand those circular metal things you plop on your fingies. The Elden Ring is more like an extremely powerful item that creates order, or in other words, if the lands between itself was a video game, the Elden Ring would dictate the ability to change the settings of that game, like Minecraft's difficulty setting or Ark's XP harvest and taming multipliers. You want to remove the ability for people to die permanently in the lands between? Uncheck this funny little destined death box, and suddenly you've just disabled dying, allowing people to respawn. Hopefully that illustrates what the Elden Ring actually is, because it took me a good while to understand it. It's not really a ring, it's a rule set. So this Elden Ring is here now. What happened to it? Who used it? Well, first what we know is that a race of dragons used the Elden Ring. For an entity to command the ring and to a degree become one with it, they had to become a god. Not in the sense that an outer god is a god, just a regular god by this definition. Then they needed what we call an Elden Lord. It's almost like Star Wars with the Sith and their rule of two. Needless to say, the first Elden Lord that we're aware of was a dragon called Placidusax. His god was a dragon god that we don't really know anything about, just that it had to exist and that he had essentially served it. The god is the one who serves or embodies the Elden Ring, and the Elden Lord is the one who serves said god, protects them, and ensures the order or configuration of the ring remains as the god intends for it to be. The Greater Will, on the other hand, just seemed to want some kind of order for the ring. They don't necessarily care about which order it is, just that there is an order at all. It's almost like the Greater Will is a server provider company, and the eventual gods that create orders are server owners. All the peasant players just kind of have to deal with the configuration the owner sets, and said owners could be open or closed-minded to suggestions in changing that order. Just hope to God that your outer god isn't Metrato, or you're f***ed either way. Beyond simplifying these abstract concepts to analogies of the modern video game industry, what happened next with these ancient dragons? Accompanying the dragons were also a race of beastmen, which were given exceedingly high intelligence, wisdom that actually was beyond humanity's later intelligence. How they got this insanely high intelligence, nobody knows, but they used it to create tools and weapons and build the monolithic structure of Fara Missoula, what seemed to be both a burial site and an actual city for the dragons and the beastmen. These beastmen appeared to go through multiple phases of technological advancement, like the Stone Age, and eventually having access to metals like iron. Now, while the beastmen are just kind of vibing, the dragons, as it turned out, were kind of having some drama. Placidusax was fighting with another dragon, or some kind of wyvern, and a really nasty one at that. Its name was Baal the Tread. The two had an insane fight and had mutually serious injuries dished to each other. At some point later on, the ancient and first Elden Lord, Placidusax, was abandoned by his god, and so he was just like, alright, I guess I'll just get locked behind time and just wait for my god to return. So that he did. Whether he did it himself or some other force locked him away in time, I don't know. A meteorite eventually struck the city of Fara Missoula, and this may have been a reason why it suddenly began to float into the sky, where it was engulfed in a seemingly never-ending storm, which, in combination with the meteor's damage, crumbled the city apart. Placidusax didn't care about any of this, obviously, because he was just chilling in his time vac here, though definitely pretty mortally wounded. Around this era, there appeared to be a dynasty civilization which we know little about. They may have been the first actual humans in the lands between, along with other kinds of entities like the Onyx and Alabaster Lords, which were like stone people. This marked the end of the ancient dragon's reign, since with Bar Missoula floating and being torn apart, their god gone, and their Elden Lord just chilling beyond time, what were they supposed to do in order to continue the purpose of the Elden Ring? The dragons decided to migrate to the snowy part of the lands between. Said dragons' descendants would eventually become the kind of modern-day dragons, and early on in the timeline, they fought a war against the giants. See, the modern-day dragons were residing in the snow until a race of fire giants came and said, no, we're gonna live here now, it's dead. Goodbye. So the dragons were chased off and the giants settled in, where they would come to create smithing, or giant version of smithing. They created a giant forge, or cauldron, or whatever you want to call this thing, which housed a powerful flame called the Flame of Ruin, a very strong flame, mind you. Around this time also, there were human astrologers that had an early society and were effectively just hanging out in the snowy mountains with the giants, seemingly without conflict. On the other hand, the Zamor civilization also developed in the snow, and they hated the fire giants for some reason. Over time, the astrological civilization migrated down from the mountains to what would eventually become the Liurnian region. You might be wondering, by the way, who exactly is the Elden Lord right now, or the god, for that matter, of the lands between? We don't have concrete evidence for that. All we know is that these civilizations of largely different humans developed and migrated around the landmass. They may have been in undocumented eras of Elden Ring configurations. But before we get into the Elden Ring configurations, it is pivotal that we talk about the Crucible. This is a term thrown around throughout the game with a disgusting amount of vagueness suffocating. What we get hinted at throughout the game, especially in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, is that the Crucible is some kind of near incomprehensible essence by which life, divine or not, is able to be created from. Like a creative mode menu in Minecraft, but probably without the actual user interface because, well, this is an abstract fantasy concept. Whatever the Crucible looks or acts like, it seems to be viewed by different cultures in different ways. For example, one particular culture known as the Hornsent people viewed it as a kind of spiral, and their architecture and accompanying items of worship towards the Crucible are seen as such, spiraling upwards towards the heavens. The Crucible also gave them horns, which they viewed as blessed and confirmed their belief that they were a chosen people. The Hornsent viewing themselves as a chosen people had some dire consequences for those around them, specifically those who weren't Hornsent.
How likely this is going?
Namely, the shaman people. See, the Hornsent were really into ritualistic sacrificial practices to appease what they thought was the Crucible, and so they actually started to massacre the shaman people since their flesh had a special property to meld harmoniously with others, and was thus good for being turned into a funny substance. They would torture these people, the shaman, and combine them together into big meatballs, and then stuff them into pots to become these saints, as they were deemed lower than the Hornsent, and I guess they just wanted any people around them to become higher beings by being inside of pots. So basically the Hornsent were like Nazi Germany, and I think you can figure out the rest of the analogy. By the way, all of this was taking place in what we can easily assume to have been part of the lands between at this point. Yes, this information has been confirmed in the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, which takes place in the Realm of Shadow, but this Realm of Shadow definitely was not always enshrouded in shadow, so it must have been in some way connected to our main landmass, the lands between, with some theorizing that it literally occupied the same exact space, being right here in the middle of the other sort of like parts of the land. With that clarified. sacrificed. Let's continue. So the Hornsent kept making meatballs out of the shaman people, and they were also working on this divine gateway project to create a god. They seem to be using the shaman people to make the jars, and as well as to make the portal or gateway itself. There's also these bodies that are attached to the sort of like spiraling castle structure, which is what the divine gateway rests on top of. We actually see this thing in game as basically being constructed with loads of bodies attached, like effigies. This portal was presumably going to be used to make their Empyrean, their chosen candidate for godhood, a god. Her name was Grandam. Eventually, throughout all of the atrocities these Hornsent people were committing, at some point one of the peasant shaman people named Marika had enough. We don't know when, but Marika one day managed to make contact with the Mother of Fingers, Matir. It is theorized that Marika was able to contact Matir because of one of these hollowed ruins that can be found right next to the actual shaman village that Marika came from. Multiple NPCs say that the one who rings the bell has their fate guided by the stars, or that they'll be cradled by the Exalted Mother. So presumably Marika rang the bell, met the Exalted Mother, Matir, and was then chosen as an Empyrean herself. Again, a candidate, but seemingly by this separate divine entity. On the other hand, whether the Fingers chose the other Empyrean, Grandam, or the Crucible and the Hornsent did, it's not really clear. Matir, having chosen Marika, was separate to anything to do with the Crucible and the Hornsent, but acted as a parallel to what they were doing. Marika, then being chosen, was set on her path to godhood, and here's where things get pretty fuzzy. Marika took note of everything here, right? The sacrifices, the Crucible, the whole let's create a god with this divine gateway shit. And I guess she was like, you know what? Why don't I become the god and create a version of the Crucible that is different from this one and doesn't involve sacrificing my people? So basically, she did that somehow. We see that in the story trailer for the Shadow of the Erdtree. Marika is walking up steps of corpses and makes it to this divine gateway we've been talking about after she pulls out some golden strands out of this fleshy hole of a corpse or something, and then from there, gold arose. She got to this point by seducing and betraying her way to the top. I have no idea how. I don't think anyone really knows how, but let's go with it. Also, it's important to clarify that as an Empyrean, Marika may have been given her shadow around this time, which was basically a companion to aid her in her potential ascendancy. In her case, it was this wolf guy named Malekith, which will come in later on. Anyway, after this gold arose and Marika did her weird ritual thing with the gateway, this seemed to create a fundamental landmass changing consequence for the lands between. We can assume there was at this point beginnings of something called the Erdtree, and something we refer to as the shadow of the Erdtree called the Scadutree. Was the Scadutree created alongside the Erdtree? Could the Scadutree just be the Crucible? So many questions, so few answers. So the Erdtree begins, and gold has risen. Oh yeah, and Marika's now a god. Focusing on the lands between, let's talk about a pivotal moment around when she became a god, which was that a city named Landale was founded and built around the now existing, albeit perhaps young, Erdtree. With Marika acting as the ruler or god and, representing order, this was now the age of the Erdtree conquest in the lands between. People weren't just going to accept the Erdtree without good reason, so Marika was about to make them understand. She needed some serious strength and an Elden Lord specifically, so she married a barbarian named Horalu. This guy was an absolute tank, known for his strength and might makes right mentality. In order for him to chill out and not be as tyrannical as he had historically been, he decided to take who was once hailed as the Lord of Beasts, Sarash, onto his back, or in other words, a kind of sentient bottleneck for his rage, in the form of this weird spirit lion thing that essentially suppressed his lust for killing. Though Horalu was still dangerous because he's an insane barbarian. Nonetheless, when he made this change, I guess with it, he changed his name, which became Godfrey, the first Elden Lord, which, as you should remember, doesn't actually make him the first Elden Lord. We forget plus it exacts. Godfrey was determined to scour over the land, ensuring that all knew how important and powerful the Erdtree was. We know that in his conquest he found the Stormlord, which was known as the Stormhawk King, and was super powerful for its epic wind attack, which we really only hear about. A shame, really, because I would have loved to see that thing during its prime instead of being forced to settle with its presumed descendants, these horrible monstrosities that have knives attached to their feet and try to throw fucking barrels at you like they're playing Donkey Kong. Kidding me? After Godfrey claimed the land that the Stormhawk was seemingly guarding, this was where he had the castle of Stormvale built, which has a big ol' statue of Godfrey in it to honor the Lord. There was also Castle Morn down south, which Godfrey took over himself and I guess massacred a bunch of people in the process. There's a sword of all the swords of the fallen people that you can actually find there, which seemingly was forged because someone was very, very angry at Godfrey and wanted to avenge their fallen comrades. One of the other threats, though, to Marika's order, and a big one at that, was the army of fire giants. they were still around, and they didn't really appreciate the whole Erd Tree just sprouting out of nowhere and those who worshipped and conquested for it to be prancing around the place acting like they were now the rightful owners of the entire lands between. The fire giants themselves had that insanely powerful flame crucible thing as well, a perfectly useful weapon for burning a giant golden tree, so America and her armies were definitely a bit paranoid. Godfrey led a huge war against them, and naturally, the fire giants fought back. In this war, Queen America was able to bring many allies to her side, including the trolls, descendants of the giants, which were just like, yeah, we like their tree, so we're gonna fight for it now, as well as the Knights of Zamor, those people I briefly mentioned earlier that really hated the fire giants, and the fire monks, which were a coalition of people that used an incantation to protect Godfrey's army from the flame of the giants. There was apparently some kind of god called the Fell God, which existed inside the giants after Queen America herself fought said Fell God, but we don't really know much about its significance beyond that. After the armies of the Erd Tree wiped out the fire giants with all kinds of methods, including impaling them with thorny stakes that went through their bodies, like, bro, what the hell? Only one fire giant remained, and he was just like, F you guys. And since America couldn't actually stop the insanely powerful flame that existed inside the crucible slash forge slash fire cup pod device thing, she cursed the dude with the eternal babysitting of it. The giants were dealt with, and that made America mildly satisfied, but not fully, I guess, judging by what happens later. During this new established era, as people began to accept the Erd Tree and the lands between, it at least gave them something in return, in the form of holy sap that seemed to drip off and was collected by the people, having mystical, perhaps healing properties. As part of the Erd Tree effectively began to establish real control over the lands, due to, of course, the actions of those who acted on it, like the Queen America and her Elden Lord Godfrey, this control would be ever strengthened by the children of the pair. Godfrey and America seemed to have about 3 kin around the same time. These consisted of Mohg and Morgott, who were known as Omen twins, which meant that they were kind of cursed with these horrible horns all over them and were banished to live in the sewers. This was going to have dire consequences, but I guess they just hated omens because they were reminiscent of the Crucible era. Regardless, America and Godfrey had another child named Godwyn at some point as well, which was kind of their star angel child. Godwyn the Golden was his title, and he helped to further establish control by this now golden lineage that he was a part of. See, as a result of being their kin, America's children were demigods, or in other words, half-gods, including Mohg, Morgott, and of course Godwyn. To tell you a little bit more about them, Mohg was really pissed off about being banished to the sewers, so he turned to blood magic via the Formless Mother. Morgott was like, I know they hate me, but I still love them. And Godwyn, well, he was just the special one and got special treatment. He seemed nice enough, though. Were there more children from America and Godfrey? Who knows, but for now, those are the 3 to be aware of. Alright, now if that was a lot to take in, I get it. So take a deep breath so we can process all of the insane wizardry that just occurred. Let us now continue where we left off in the last chapter with the continuation of the golden lineage and where things really start to pick up. Remember way back near the beginning when I was talking about the astrologers that came down from the snowy mountains to a western region that would later become Liurnia? Well, those people had progressed quite a lot since I last talked about them. There was the Carian royal family, and then there was the Academy of Raya Lucaria. They were separate initially, but one of the Carian royals, a woman named Rennala, brought the 2 factions together. She just had, like, ultimate riz. Rennala was seemingly a princess, along with her younger sister, R'hllana. Each of them had some kind of magical moon, meaning that they were moon twins. R'hllana would later take both of these for herself, but that's DLC territory. At some point, once the then established sort of golden order, golden lineage was in full force, the armies of Queen America tried to liberate or take control of Liurnia. But the prideful Liurnians would not have it. There was a huge war that commenced, and one of the big players in said war was a man that seemingly came out of nowhere, Radagon. This dude is really important. Perhaps coming into existence at the birth of the Golden Order configuration itself, he has a very strange connection to Queen America. Radagon himself is Queen America, embodied as another person, in this case, a man. How might this work? Did they do mitosis? No clue. Regardless, this Radagon of the Golden Order fought against Rennala in battle during the Liurnia Wars, and by the end of the Second War, yes, there was a second one, Radagon was just like, okay, I'm gonna make the war stop by drinking this so-called celestial dew at the Church of Vows and profess my love for Rennala, thus ending the wars and uniting both sides. And then he actually did it. Cool? So then both the people of Liurnia and the Golden Order were peacefully united, and everyone lived happily ever after. Oh wait, this is a FromSoft game. So Radagon and Rennala smashed. They had 3 kids, Radahn, Ranni, and Rykard. Radahn became a general of the Red Mane forces in Caelid to the southeast. Ranni took after her mother and studied sorceries, and Rykard went on to become a justiciar who led inquisitors that tortured those considered heretics to the Golden Order. Speaking of the Golden Order, remember the Elden Lord Godfrey? Well, he was starting to lose his grace around this time, which America seemed to create when gold arose in that cursed portal of bodies. Grace was extended by America to everyone except the Hornsent, and eventually was temporarily taken from the Tarnished, which Godfrey was becoming. After fighting America's wars and pretty much cleansing the land of all major conflict, the hue from Godfrey's eyes started to fade. As his usefulness came to an end, Queen Marika had a plan. After questioning the Greater Will and the meaning of everything, she seemingly wanted to test it. She may have believed that bonds were to be broken and hardships had to be endured to fully understand the truth of the Greater Will. To test said beliefs, she divorced Godfrey and sent him away, along with his tarnished descendants. Marika's plan is repeated by this woman named Melina as follows.
In Marika's own words, O Lord and thy warriors, I divest each of thee of thy grace. With thine eyes dimmed, ye will be driven from the lands between. Ye will wage war in a land afar, where ye will live and die.
So with Godfrey banished, along with apparently all of his tarnished warriors, descendants, or whatever homies he left with, and as a lot of the major conflict was totally put to rest, things were chill, until the land between was shocked with a huge scandal. Radagon left Rennala. Why exactly? Well, remember Radagon and Marika were possibly the same being at this point, somehow just split into a guy and a girl. So Marika wanted to merge back into Radagon, which would explain why he suddenly left Rennala. If you recall, he kind of came out of nowhere in the first place back when he led the people into battle while fighting against the Carians, initially, inevitably later uniting the two houses. Regardless, after leaving Rennala, Radagon married Queen Marika and had kids. Is this asexual? I don't know. If there weren't already too many demigod names starting with M, oh boy!
I thought Melania, is that the fucking girl I'm talking to?
Right here.
Who is she?
Melina.
Dude, Melina, Melania, Marika. How the fuck is anyone supposed to fucking remember this shit?
I pray to the outer gods so you don't have half as hard of a time as I did trying to desperately remember the names of these characters early on in my journey as a wee little tarnished. Marika and Radagon's new kids, a set of twins, were kinda weird. Miquella was cursed with eternal squeaker syndrome. He looked like a kid for life and wanted to help his sister. Said sister, Melania, was cursed with scarlet rot inside of her and cared very much about protecting Miquella. That said, apparently in Elden Ring you should not have twins, especially not with yourself. Marika also had a son named Mesmer as well, and also seemingly had another child named Melina. There's no direct named evidence for this whole Melina theory, but with the Erdtree DLC and Mesmer's item description saying he had a little sister, it is now more heavily implied than ever. Melina, most likely, went on to become the Glowmite Queen, which I'll talk about a little later on. Back to Mesmer though. Like Melania and Miquella, he was also cursed. Mesmer had a writhing snake inside of him, and Marika decided, I'm gonna pluck out your eye and put in place a golden eye, which will seal your stupid snakes inside you and make you chill. But apparently this wasn't enough to stop the snakes from coming out or something, so out of fear of this cursed snake, she sent him to the land or realm of shadow where he was to tie up some loose ends. Remember the horrible Hornsent people that massacred Marika's people long before she became a god? Well, they were still alive, and she really thought that they shouldn't be alive anymore because of what they had done in the past, and were maybe even still doing to a degree. So to kill two birds with one stone, she sent Mesmer to the region she had arisen from with an army, and utilizing these huge fire golems that wielded a very powerful flame, one which was powerful enough to burn body and soul, Mesmer basically burned the ever-living shit out of the Hornsent people and torched their main capital city, Belerive. In this process, though, Marika seemed to seal off the region, making it permanently in the shadow of the Erdtree, and now a very difficult place to travel to because it's as if the landmass was a part of the land between 1 second and then the next it was just poofed. becoming the Realm of Shadow. I guess going with Mesmer on the crusade was a few people, including Renala's sister, R'hllana, who very much wanted to help Mesmer massacre the Hornsent and was considered his blade or protector, but also coming with him was a guy named Gaius, a friend of Radahn, who was the leader of Mesmer's men, his commander. And real quick, speaking of the men that made up this army, many of them were on board with the massacre genuinely, but then a lot of them may have been sent there against their own will, with some suggested to have been prisoners. This would totally make sense, since not only would the whole crusade be killing 2 birds with 1 stone, it would be killing 3, because Marika would be first killing the Hornsent, second getting rid of her very dangerous child Mesmer, and third banishing a load of prisoners or unwanted people in the land between. So after Marika did this, things may have been pretty chilled, but the reality of the Golden Lineage meant that one day she would be replaced, probably. One potential candidate to replace her was Nicola, who was an Imperial. He made a vow to his half-brother, Radahn, saying this: Radahn probably seemed pretty cool to Nicola, and in appearance he was probably just as young as Nicola at this point, making them very obvious peers. And again, half-brothers. Radahn was generally a nice demigod, and I could see why Nicola would respect him heavily, but to go as far as wanting him to be Nicola's Elden Lord / King Consort whenever Nicola eventually would become a god after becoming an Empyrean, that's something. What exactly are the terms of this vow? Unexplained. Was Nicola really into guys?
Hello.
Unexplained.
Hello there, dogs. Hello there, dogs. What is good?
Will there be an...
Yo, what is good, dude? What is good, dude?
Today I'm gonna show you the easiest method of how you can reach Rykard, the Lord of Blasphemy. Yeah, this is a main boss in Elden Ring. This is not something that you must kill in order to continue with the game, in order to finish the game, but this is something that you definitely want to reach and to fight. So we're gonna start from the first step. I just showed you how you can bypass the Stormveil Castle. You have to be in these lakes, you'll have to cross the lakes, and we're gonna start the journey from a familiar point. I'm gonna assume that most of you already passed that Grand Lift of the Catus with the...
Hello everyone, today I'm gonna show you how to find Rykard.
What is up with you, my G? Up with you, my G? Darren Pointon.
So there are 2 ways that you can find him. One is from the Site of Grace inside the Volcano Manor. So if you have that one, please follow this video from the beginning. Or if you have already defeated the Godskin Noble, there's a timestamp down below for those of you who have that Site of Grace already. So you want to start this by heading to the Volcano Manor area. and going to the volcano.
Hello everyone, welcome. Hello everyone, welcome. So, I was asked in my last video how to get to the Godskins Church. So we're gonna start from right here, the Volcano Manor, in case you haven't progressed this far. What you're gonna do is you're gonna talk to this lady and accept her accord. Now, typically you've already received her letter, but don't worry if you haven't, the quest still glitches out even if you have. So you should be able to accept her accord. You'll come right to this room, open it up, and there'll be an illusionary wall here. Go ahead and equip a torch. Go ahead, open it up, and there'll be an illusionary wall here. Go ahead and equip a torch. Kill anything that gets in your path. And you're gonna run right down here. Now there is a giant guy with a sword down here. Assuming, yeah, he does respawn. So just quickly take him out. And he will drop his claws, I believe. I think it's a guaranteed drop. And you then gain access to this grace.
Yo, whoever just thank you. Yo, whoever just thank you. FYI, I can't see. I can't see my YouTube comments. Just like because I have a different. I have a tab. I have a tab trying to find. And my other tab is of course. Elden Ring. So I'll wait alt tab to. I'm just trying to get comments right now. I'm just trying to get to a ride card. And there was an encounter. And there was along the way. Poison. Poison. Hit him through. Here poison. There's a big boss again. One shot to you. But thank you for subbing, you. Yo, bro. Thanks, G. This is worse.
The Prison Town Church. Now, the quickest and easiest way to get up over there you'll see that I have a bridge here that you won't have. You're going to want to run down over here and run across the roofs. Now, everything here is pretty dangerous, but you can easily run past it all since it's slow. Go down here, up this way. That door will be locked for you, but there's a ladder right here. You're just gonna climb it, come over here to the left, drop down. As soon as you enter, the way to open the door will be on your right. Now you want to be careful in this next area. There's going to be lots of little things that can grab you. Those. You're just going to bait its jump and roll backwards. Kill this one that's sleeping, and that's going to pull a bunch of them towards you. This guy as well, if you've got long distance, his howl drags them to you. So they're still going to be dragged towards you regardless, you'll just have less drag towards you. And you'll have a grace here. Now this, come over here to the left, past it also, Prison Town Church. Now the quickest and easiest way to get up over there, you'll see that I have a bridge here that you won't have. You're gonna want to run down over here and run across the roofs. Now, everything here is pretty dangerous, but you can easily run past it all since it's slow. Go down here, up this way. That door will be locked for you. But there's a ladder right here. You're just gonna climb it, come over here to the left, drop down. As soon as you enter, the way to open the door will be on your right. Now you want to be careful in this next area. There's going to be lots of little things that can grab you. Those. You're just gonna bait its jump and roll backwards. Kill kill this one that's sleeping. And that's going to pull a bunch of them towards you. This guy as well, if you've got long distance, his howl drags them to you. So if you... they're still gonna be dragged towards you regardless. You'll just have less drag. And you'll have a grace here. Now this grace is the guest hall grace. You'll continue out this way. Again, don't worry about the lava. It's friendly. Up over this way, and there'll be a guy with a whip here. You'll want to avoid him. Go up the ladder, or elevator. And here we are at the god. Godskin Church. This guy's annoying, just roll right past him. Don't go in just yet. Grab this to activate the bridge and a shortcut. So that way you don't have to do that all over.
uptick of Rule 34 results after people fully catch wind of this? Unexplained. One thing we can almost definitively say for sure is that Miquella loved his sister a lot and was very invested in trying to find a cure for her kind of major problem. Melania also loved Miquella very much and devoted herself to being his blade or protector, with the two of them compensating for each other's flaws. They were both candidates for godhood, Empyreans, as so many of the offspring of Marika seemed to be, including, once Marika later married Radagon, Ranni. Remember the character I talked about like over 5 minutes ago that I barely elaborated on? Well, Ranni, the sister of Radahn and Rykard, became an Empyrean once her father Radagon married Marika. So both she and Miquella and Melania, now Ranni's half-siblings, were all given 2 fingers to help guide them in their potential ascendancy to godhood. The 3 were also presumably given shadows, and we know that Ranni's shadow was a wolfman dude thing named Blythe. Taking a step back from the Golden family though for a minute, we ought to mention the Godskins, because they're pretty important both as a player, holy shit this fight fucking sucks, and in the grand scheme of the lore. To put it simply, remember Mesmer's sister Melina? Well, she is very likely, due to a shit ton of evidence, the Gloam-eyed Queen. Said Queen was known to be an Empyrean chosen by the Fingers, which would definitely further add to the evidence of her being Melina. But also, for whatever reason, Marika seemed to cast Melina out. I guess she was cursed too. So if she was kicked out of the royal family and she also was the Gloam-eyed Queen, then she was later responsible for some pretty crazy stuff. See, the Queen made these things called Godskin Apostles, followers that were made from weird artificial means, and they wanted nothing more than to slay gods, wielding the power of destined death. They primarily used a black flame incantation in combat, which, due to the destined death imbued in it, was able to slay gods. Who they slayed? I'm not sure. We may or may not have the actual names of these gods that they apparently slayed and may or may not have made clothes out of, but they're pretty menacing nonetheless. I mean, just look at this midsummer looking ass village later on. Like, what the f is this? With the Godskins being a threat to the Golden lineage, Marika sent her shadow, Malekith, to destroy them. Malekith fought and killed the Gloam-eyed Queen, or if Melina is in fact the same person, burned her but didn't kill her entirely, because somehow in the way future when you're actually playing the game, Melina is a spirit ghost lady thing that follows you around and talks to you. Anyway, to further prevent anyone from wielding destined death to kill any more gods, Marika sealed away the destined death rune itself, which was previously part of the Elden Ring configuration, with Malekith to guard it, sealing the rune in his sword. With the destined death rune then removed from the ring, this essentially created an entirely new configuration or order of its own, which may have been Marika and the Fingers' goal all along, what we refer to as the Golden Order. Was this Golden Order gonna last long? Maybe, or maybe if you're Ranni, you really don't want to become a god and despise the fact that you're an Empyrean and decide, hey, I'm gonna kill my half-brother and do this insane satanic ritual to ensure
Volcano Manor, Site of Grace. Once you're here, you want to follow me. You want to go down this path, go on the right here, and this is a secret door, so if you stand there, then this door is going to disappear, and then you just go inside, you turn left and keep going straight ahead. If you have a torch, it's better because it's really dark in here. Then you want to go down these stairs, keep going straight. There's a bunch of enemies here, just keep running straight. Then you're gonna want to go up these stairs, and there's this Site of Grace. Once you're here, if you have lost any health, you can save up here, and then you want to head out. You want to open this door, and then you're gonna head outside and turn right. Then you go down a little bit, up on this roof. On this one, be careful with these enemies, jump around. Then you want to jump down onto this roof, jump down here, go up these stairs, and left to cross this bridge. Be careful with this guy, he's pretty powerful. Then if the door is not open, you go around here, up this ladder to the roof. Then you go around here, jump on this window. There's a bunch of enemies, so be careful, you can open the door behind you back there. Then you want to go down these stairs. Just keep going down. Once you're down here, turn left, right, open this door. Then you want to go right. There's a ladder down here to the right. Through this door. And here, be careful, but we're gonna jump down to this ledge, so be careful not to miss it. Go around the lava here, across this bridge, above the slugs, down this path. Be careful again to not fall. Just keep following all I'm doing and be careful with the lava. Here, be careful, there's a powerful enemy, so just jump around and jump onto this window. And there's going to be a bunch of enemies through this path. Just keep running and dodging if you can. If you're really powerful, then you shouldn't worry, but I wasn't that powerful, so, and I didn't want to mess around. So keep going this way, turn right into this door. Up here, this is a tricky part. There are 2 lizard and 1, so to say, big head guy. Them, you don't have order path once you're here. If it's not activated, then activate it. Then you go up, and you want to go straight through this door. And here, be careful, but we're gonna jump down to this ledge, so be careful not to miss it. Go around the lava here, across this bridge, above the slugs, down this path. Be careful again to not fall. Just keep following all I'm doing and be careful with the lava. Here, be careful, there's a powerful enemy, so just jump around and jump onto this window. And there's going to be a bunch of enemies through this path. Just keep running and dodging if you can. If you're really powerful, then you shouldn't worry, but I wasn't that powerful, so, and I didn't want to mess around. So keep going this way, turn right into this door. Up here, this is a tricky part. There are 2 lizard and 1, so to say, big head guy. You have to kill them. You don't have to kill them, but I would almost say it's 100% a lot better if you kill them, because the way to get to Rykard is right outside the door on the back right of this room, and they'll follow you out there because it's a fast travel point. So I tried to do this a couple times and it killed me. Once you've done it, you
sure that I don't have to remain beholden to this stupid god crap. So, remember Godwyn, Marika and Godfrey's son? Well, he was just doing shit, being a pretty cool guy, before these Black Knife assassins who were hired by Ranni to go and steal a shard of Malekith's sword came and shanked Godwyn with this destined death-infused shard, carving a piece of this death symbol circle into him, while Ranni, on the other hand, also had that symbol carved into her, which caused an insane magic reaction that can only be described as needlessly complicated. Godwyn seemed to lose his soul, while his body was still a vessel for a soul, which is apparently really bad when combined with the whole destined death thing. And then Ranni, on the other hand, kept her soul but lost the tether to her human flesh, at which point she put her soul into a doll's body. Godwyn's body, on the other hand, was discovered and mourned by the Golden family, being buried at the roots of an ancient great tree underground. Unfortunately, while Ranni's body is just hanging out on top of a tower still, Godwyn's body became an eldritch horror because of the circumstances of his death and spread an entirely new thing called Deathroot all around the lands between. Following the tragic death and spreading of her son, Marika was distraught. Also, the people of the lands between were like, yo, demigods can die? And a lot of chaos broke out. There was a decent amount of fighting. Demigods like Mikola outright abandoned the Golden Order fundamentalism, which was basically him going, I never cared about this shit anyways, I prefer more overt incest. And everything else was just getting to a breaking point before Marika decided, hey, I'm gonna literally shatter the Elden Ring, which she then proceeded to do. Okay. To recap this insane and very long chapter, Marika shrouded what seemed to be part of the previous lands between in shadow, the shadow of the Erdtree. Some people stayed in the Land of Shadows, some people stayed in what we know as the proper Land Between. The demigods mostly all just seemed to be trying to chill out and get by, while Miquella was doing some really weird shit, making vows to do some incest stuff with Radahn, which may or may not have been consensual, while Mesmer was sent off to massacre the Hornsent people, which probably had it coming considering what they did to Marika's people back in the day. Then Godwyn was assassinated, Ranni became a doll, and Marika shattered the Elden Ring, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. The Shattering. With the Elden Ring shattered, some of the demigods got their hands on different pieces of it, and ultimately none could agree on who should be the Elden Lord and succeed whatever soulless creature Marika/Radagon was at this point. The demigods fought harder than the 11-year-olds competing to type first on every YouTube video. To start, Rykard, if you recall, Rennala and Radagon's son, was suddenly very against the Golden Order, or whatever was left of it, fighting wars to become the new Elden Lord by force. He would eventually retreat to his volcano manor and get eaten by a giant snake that whispered sweet nothings to him. His brother Radahn, on the other hand, still appreciated the Golden Order and resided in Caelid, which was experiencing its own issues with scarlet rot outbreaks. His sister Ranni, now a literal doll, was just chilling in a tower with an ultimate plan to follow through on her fate, which was apparently to remove all control from the gods and allow the stars to determine things, and with her connection to the Astrological Society being Rennala's daughter, that kind of makes sense. But what about the other demigods? Well, early in the Shattering War, one of Godfrey's old descendants, Godfroy the Grafted, actually tried his hand at attacking Landale, because he wanted to be Elden Lord, I guess, but he failed miserably and was imprisoned. And then his son, Godric the Grafted, ran like a coward, eventually making it over to Stormvale Castle, which he kind of took over. But while Godric is a meaningless character that nobody likes, Miquella and Malenia, during this period of the Shattering era, were doing some stuff to prepare for when the vow Miquella made way back when would eventually be an insane magic reaction. Elena is a spirit ghost lady thing that follows you around and talks to you. Anyway, to further prevent anyone from wielding Destined Death to kill any more gods, Marika sealed away the Destined Death rune itself, which was previously part of the Elden Ring configuration, with Malekith to guard it, sealing the rune in his sword. With the Destined Death rune then removed from the ring, this essentially created an entirely new configuration or order of its own, which may have been Marika and the Finger's goal all along, what we refer to as the Golden Order. Was this Golden Order gonna last long? Maybe, or maybe if you're Ranni, you really don't want to become a god and despise the fact that you're an Empyrean and decide, hey, I'm gonna kill my half-brother and do this insane satanic ritual to ensure that I don't have to remain beholden to this stupid god crap. So, remember Godwyn, Marika and Godfrey's son? Well, he was just doing shit, being a pretty cool guy, before these Black Knife assassins who were hired by Ranni to go and steal a shard of Malekith's sword came and shanked Godwyn with this Destined Death-infused shard, carving a piece of this death symbol circle into him, while Ranni, on the other hand, also had that symbol carved into her, which caused an insane magic reaction that can only be described as needlessly complicated. Godwyn seemed to lose his soul, while his body was still a vessel for a soul, which is apparently really bad when combined with the whole Destined Death thing. And then Ranni, on the other hand, kept her soul but lost the tether to her human flesh, at which point she put her soul into a doll's body. Godwyn's body, on the other hand, was discovered and mourned by the Golden family, being buried at the roots of an ancient great tree underground. Unfortunately, while Ranni's body is just hanging out on top of a tower still, Godwyn's body became an eldritch horror because of the circumstances of his death and spread an entirely new thing called Deathroot all around the Lands Between. Following the tragic death and spreading of her son, Marika was distraught. Also, the people of the Lands Between were like, yo, demigods can die? And a lot of chaos broke out. There was a decent amount of fighting. Demigods like Miquella outright abandoned the Golden Order fundamentalism, which was basically him going, I never cared about this shit anyways, I prefer more overt incest. And everything else was just getting to a breaking point before Marika decided, hey, I'm gonna literally shatter the Elden Ring, which she then proceeded to do. Okay. To recap this insane and very long chapter, Marika shrouded what seemed to be a part of the previous Lands Between in shadow, the shadow of the Erdtree. Some people stayed in the Land of Shadows, some people stayed in what we know as the proper Lands Between. The demigods mostly all just seemed to be trying to chill out and get by, while Miquella was doing some really weird shit, making vows to do some incest stuff with Radahn, which may or may not have been consensual, while Mesmer was sent off to massacre the Hornsent people, which probably had it coming considering what they did to Marika's people back in the day. Then Godwyn was assassinated, Ranni became a doll, and Marika shattered the Elden Ring, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new one. The Shattering. With the Elden Ring shattered, some of the demigods got their hands on different pieces of it, and ultimately none could agree on who should be the Elden Lord and succeed whatever soulless creature America/Radagon was at this point. The demigods fought harder than the 11-year-olds competing to type first on every YouTube video. To start, Rykard, if you recall, Rennala and Radagon's son, was suddenly very against the Golden Order, or whatever was left of it, fighting wars to become the new Elden Lord by force. He would eventually retreat to his volcano manor and get eaten by a giant snake that whispered sweet nothings to him. His brother Radahn, on the other hand, still appreciated the Golden Order and resided in Caelid, which was experiencing its own issues with scarlet rot outbreaks. His sister Ranni, now a literal doll, was just chilling in a tower with an ultimate plan to follow through on her fate, which was apparently to remove all control from the gods and allow the stars to determine things, and with her connection to the Astrological Society being Rennala's daughter, that kind of makes sense. But what about the other demigods? Well, early in the Shattering War, one of Godfrey's old descendants, Godfroy the Grafted, actually tried his hand at attacking Leyndell, because he wanted to be Elden Lord, I guess, but he failed miserably and was imprisoned. And then his son, Godric the Grafted, ran like a coward, eventually making it over to Stormvale Castle, which he kind of took over. But while Godric is a meaningless character that nobody likes, Miquella and Malenia, during this period of the Shattering era, were doing some stuff to prepare for when the vow Miquella made way back when would eventually bear fruit. See, Miquella saw what happened to Goblin, with his body having just been spread through the lands between and being capable of manifesting as more than just a body. Miquella also seemed to know at this point a funny, quirky little fact about the Realm of Shadow, which was that to actually enter now, to go to the place yourself, you had to absolve yourself of your flesh, somehow basically doing what it was. So Miquella came up with an idea, or a way to get to the Realm of Shadow, because of how important it was to his overall plan, to become a god and to have Radahn be his consort. He first created something called the Haligtree by taking an Erdtree sapling, watering it with his own blood, and growing it into a gigantic, sprawling Eden of empathy, or so you'd think. This Haligtree was actually a place for people to sort of chill out and escape from being hunted or chased down by the Golden Order, for example. This was a pretty popular place for the Albanurics, which were like these sort of artificial GMO creatures, kind of like the Godskin Apostles we talked about earlier. Miquella's sister, Malenia, also hung out here at the Haligtree, where Miquella worked on methods to try and cure her scarlet rot with things like unalloyed gold, which helped to treat the disease to a degree. Miquella eventually had enough dilly-dallying around trying to save Malenia and disabled, and Malenia was like, I'm gonna stab us both now. Then she was like, Miquella, winning his cognition and stripping him of all but his body, his anorexic horse, and a now very tormented mind. Malenia went into like a coma, and that was that. There are so many questions, like, did Radahn actually agree to be Miquella's consort? Which, if you don't know the definition, that means spouse, basically. So, did this dude actually consent to being in an incest relationship with his half-brother that also looked eternally like a young child, or was he manipulated? We know that Miquella can absolutely manipulate people to do his bit, and basically turned into a scarlet rot zombie. Miquella was like, alright, I need a temporary sugar daddy to do some other real sugar daddy. Which takes us to Mohg. Oh, poor Mohg. You might not actually be the Mohg Lester that we thought you were.
They just kept calling me the Mohg Lester, but finally people know the truth about the Miquella Lester.
Remember this guy? This was one of Godfrey's sons that he had with Marika, one of the banished Omen twins that worshipped blood magic, and he happened to be perfect for manipulation because unlike his twin brother Morgott, who defended the Golden Order with every fiber in his being, Mohg was pretty vengeful seeming. At least he thought he had better ideas than what the Golden Order was all about. Regardless, Miquella seemingly manipulated Mohg into taking Miquella's cocoon out of the Haligtree, placing it into Mohg's own underground temple known as Mohgwyn Palace, and guarding it. Why did Miquella want Mohg to do this? Apparently, so that one day someone might come along and kill Mohg, allowing Miquella to use Mohg's demigod body, yoink it into the Realm of Shadows somehow, and pair it with Radahn's soul, reviving him with a new body in the Shadow Realm. Yeah, it's like simple, right? If you're also so incredibly confused by this story that you've completely lost any hope that the writers were not snorting copious amounts of cocaine while coming up with this shit, I am right there with you. Miquella's plan to eventually revive Radahn in the Shadow Realm, make him his Elden Lord, and become God in the process seemed to pretty much solely hinge on some random bozo coming up and slaughtering zombie Radahn and Mohg. This plan also very much kind of aligned with Marika's, or was similar to hers, when she went through the process of shattering the Elden Ring. See, she wanted to allow the Tarnished to return to the Lands Between by extending grace to them, which, if you recall, she took away a long time ago. Were the Tarnished a backup? It kind of seems like they were, in case the whole not-so-golden order were to fall apart. So, it's time to meet you. You, the player. Yes, you. You're Tarnished. Welcome back from being banished away and having your poor grace taken away from you. There are many like you, who have returned to the Lands Between to seek the Elden Ring and become the new Elden Lord. Many who tried, all so far who have failed. But you'll be different, because this is a video game and no matter how many times you die, you will always try again. Sweatier than before, but don't let that get you down. Your character wakes up after being extended this grace and making some kind of travel to the Lands Between through a metaphorical or real fog. Just to be clear, there are other continents on the planet the Lands Between takes place on. And for example, if you choose the Samurai loadout when creating your Tarnish, you'll find that they come from the distant Land of Reeds. Whoever your character is though, they'll eventually stumble their way outside of a church-like building and take their first steps into the Lands Between. Guided by your grace, you learn the layout of this place, meeting its inhabitants, a now shattered, lost, and broken people. You fight monsters, all kinds of creatures of strange origin, yet many of them give clues to the lost, rich, ancient history left behind. Eventually you fight bosses and start to make your presence known in this land, all the while being guided by Melina, the strange, confused spirit that seems to be left behind from the Gloam-Eyed Queen. After slaying dragons, shardbearers, and even demigods, at some point you have a choice to make. Go straight to where Marika and Radagon are conjoined, to locked away in the Erd Tree, or pursue and hunt down Radahn, the brain-rotted demigod, and eventually Mohg, who at the time you understand to be a kidnapper. Your choice of pursuing the main quest or Miquella's is split depending on whether you want to engage with the DLC. This video of course covers said DLC, so let's talk about what happens when you do what Miquella was really banking on after all those years before you showed up. After fighting and slaying Radahn, and seemingly after a certain happy little pot man named Alexander eats Radahn's entire corpse, the demigod is then set free from his flesh and seemingly capable of existing in the realm of shadow. All I know is that you have to kill Radahn. Afterwards, you find Mohg, fight him in his palace, and ultimately slay him. This is the point where one of Miquella's followers, Leda, tells you to go and touch Miquella's hand, to be transported to the realm of shadow. Miquella yoinks Mohg's corpse to go there himself, and this is where the DLC begins. So now you're here, in the realm of shadow, in the shadow of the Erd Tree. If you're anything like me, you're really confused about what this place is, where it is, how any of this works, but nonetheless, let's carry on. Before you got here, Miquella actually got here first, even though you're responsible for letting him come here, I guess? So he must have done some stuff like really fast, just straight up like any percent speedrun the DLC. He abandoned his flesh of his old or his new body in the Shadow Realm, but not just his flesh. See, he abandoned parts of his mind, it seemed, including another individual entirely that was actually a part of Miquella. See, much like how Marika had another person inside her, that being Radagon, which she could split off and reform into seemingly at will, Miquella also had another component, that being a girl named Saint Trina. We don't know much about Saint Trina, other than the fact that she was a girl and that she eventually blossomed into a flower creature entity once Miquella, in the process of leaving everything of himself behind, split her off of himself, leaving her to just hang out at the bottom of this gigantic hole in the Shadow Realm. So after you left Saint Trina, as well as his eyes, his arms, and basically every part of himself behind, once arriving in the Shadow Realm, he kind of just goes up to the Divine Gateway in this shadowy tower that Marika had initially locked behind long ago after becoming a god herself, and he just kind of waited. Or maybe that's when he started to use Mohg's body to birth the new Radahn by pairing his soul with the body. Now, okay, with all that set up, we can finally get to you, Tarnished. You explore this new place and find that Miquella has a lot of followers. A lot of these followers were charmed up until a certain point in the DLC before the charm was broken, including an NPC named Ansbach, who actually used to be a follower of Mohg and claimed that he tried to free Mohg from Miquella's charm, only to be charmed himself. A good representation of this charm is how Miquella is capable of actually stealing your heart during the final boss fight, in which he grabs you and he promises a 1,000-year voyage guided by compassion. Then if he grabs you twice, instead of the game saying you died, it says heart stolen, and you pretty much die like normal, but you just like hang out. But we're gonna get into the boss fight later. So nonetheless, this realm of shadows is where you're introduced to a ton of new bosses, and you discover exactly what Mesmer did to this place before it was enshrouded in shadow with all this genocide and everything. Except, wait, Mesmer is still being a fire terrorist. Seems like he's really clinging on to his trauma from when Marika locked him in the Shadow Realm, because he seemingly still depends on the idea of her, albeit horrible, motherhood for emotional support, like in one of his cutscenes.
That's all. That's all. That was easy. That was easy.
You kill bosses, roll through this land like you're the main character, because you kind of are, and discover a bunch of lore. Lore which I've just spent definitely too many hours. Once you absolutely obliterate the local population, burn this shadow seal crap with the kindling you stole from Mesmer's corpse, and make your way through this castle found above the tortured city of Bellerat, you finally come face to face with the final boss of the DLC, young Radon, which is using Mohg's body. He doesn't speak, he just tries to mercilessly kill you as fast as humanly possible. Oh, You probably steamroll the shit out of Radahn in phase 1, which isn't too bad, but then, in his second phase, Miquella finally comes out, wrapping himself around Radahn, and again, if he grabs you, he will make you fail the fight by stealing your heart. Bro really said, "I'm gay, and you?" I'm gay too, I think. Once you finally kill what may arguably be the most difficult boss fight in the game, you Elden Ring superfans can be the judge of that, we get a memory from Miquella revealing the vow he made way back when. And then, it's over. You just killed Miquella and let Radahn finally have a fucking rest after everything he was just put through. And that's sort of it. If you decide to do the DLC and see everything through at the end, you're gonna kill Miquella, which, by the way, is exactly what his banished other half, Saint Trina, suggested that you do, given that, like Marika, seemed to find godhood to be a prison, detaching her mentally from her own values and humanity. The same was very likely to happen to Miquella if he actually, fully went through with this. But with the DLC covered, where do we go next? Well, the endings to the base game itself, of course, which we're gonna go over now. After you either skip the entire DLC or complete it and continue onward with the rest of the main game, what exactly do you do? Well, the issue you get to is that the Erd Tree, which houses Marika in it, is sealed off by some crazy Erd Tree thorns and stuff, so you need to burn it in order to get through the blockage. Thus, if you didn't already slay the fire giant that sits atop the snowy mountain guarding the big old forge thing, then that's probably your next stop. Yes, this is the same dude that was eternally cursed by Marika to stay up here attending the flame. He is not a happy boy, not at all, and I definitely wasn't either while fighting him. You need to burn it.
Come on, one more.
Suck my nuts in your mouth! Swallow! Swallow, nihil! Swallow! After killing the fire giant, Melina pops up and she's like, okay, so now I'm gonna light the whole ass tree on fire and die, I guess. So she does, and without warning, she also teleports you to that ancient dragon city, Farum Azula, which I talked about like 30 minutes ago, and just dies in the process. She's gone. She's dead. The fire killed her. Melina is gone. Now, if you recall, this place that you just got teleported to, Farum Azula, got totally wrecked by a meteor and started floating and getting engulfed in a seemingly never-ending storm. Why did Melina teleport you here? Well, this was to assure that you were in the right place to carry on this sort of part of the deal where you're going to become Elden Lord. That's why she had just herself, was to kind of help you. And the reason you needed to come to Farum Azula to do that was because Destined Death was still sealed here. And what that meant is that gods couldn't be killed. Rewinding a bit back to when Godwyn was killed, Malekith, the furry guy which was responsible for not allowing anyone to get their hands on even a shard of his sword, which had Destined Death sealed in it, he kind of failed at his job. So he was like, I'm really angry and I'm going to seal this sword literally inside of me, which he did way back when. So you explore Farum Azula and eventually find Malekith, who, after pretending to be a really unnaturally acrobatic sausage man in some oddly concealed robes, tears them all off when his health bar reaches halfway, and then proceeds to probably f***ing obliterate you. Dude, I suck at this boss! Whenever you manage to kill him, though, the rune of Destined Death is then, I guess, just unsealed, and the gods can now be killed. Yippee! You head back to the Erd Tree, and after doing everything your tarnished mind may desire, you head inside for the final showdown. So you gotta fight Radagon, which is also Marika. You can see the Elden Ring, like, literally embedded inside of them. It's pretty cool. Once you slay Radagon, the cosmic being known as the Elden Beast, which, if we rewind, was the literal embodiment of order and thus the Elden Ring, just kind of slithers out of the void, and you know the drill. Once you kill the Elden Beast, you're presented with some different endings, depending on a variety of choices you made along the way. I assume there is no ending relating to the Erd Tree DLC, but let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. Starting with the shittiest ending of them all, the Frenzied Flame ending. If you decide to get fingered by this weird three-fingered entity, you become a carrier of the Frenzied Flame, and Melina doesn't have to die when burning the Erd Tree with the flame from the Giant's Forge. This Frenzied Flame thing, once you get your hands on the Elden Ring, means you just, like, burn everything. Like, you just kill everyone. It's all going, it's gone. Except Melina's still alive, and she's gonna hunt you down for all of eternity. And now do you see why the whole Glowmite Queen theory is very plausible? The next worst ending is the Age of Order, which is where you just kind of restore what the Golden Order was doing. And if you choose that one, that's kind of boring. The next ending you could choose is the Age of Despair, which requires going through a whole quest line with this guy named the Dung Eater, just like, okay, I don't think he actually eats dung. He just wants to spread a really bad virus around and make everyone have, like, warts and suffer and stuff. It's not. Why would you do this? The default ending, on the other hand, while not being horrible, isn't particularly satisfying to me. America is still a god, presumably, so you're her Elden Lord, but is she really, like, anything, like, alive anymore? This just kind of sounds like a depressing ending. The second best ending, I would suggest, is the Age of the Duskborn, where you essentially just bring back and repair death into the Elden Ring configuration, which apparently wasn't already sorted out before, but otherwise nothing else about the order seems to really be changed. So it's kind of just, yeah. The last ending of these 6, and easily the best in my opinion, is the Age of Stars. This one, which you can only get by completing Ronnie's quest, allows you to, number 1, no longer be maidenless, an absolute win in my books, and number 2, remove gods and all this crazy shit from the lands between, allowing people to rely on the stars for guidance, whatever that totally entails. Kind of just seems like she wants to not with people and leave them be, and I'm all for that. While Elden Ring is possibly the most lore-dense video game I will probably ever cover in my lifetime, a lot of that is due to the sheer scope of everything. So many characters, so many of them being gods or demigods, so many places, so many species. It's just a lot of stuff to cover, and I'm almost certain there's going to be even more exposition that is clarified about base game Elden Ring lore and primarily Shadow of the Erdtree lore moving forward past this video. But what do you guys think? Is the lore way too vague still, and did the DLC
New MrBeast allegations have just dropped, and it's not looking good for Jimmy. So last time we talked about Dogpack404's viral video where a former MrBeast employee exposes Jimmy for allegedly conducting illegal lotteries towards children, promoting gambling, faking his videos, forging signatures, manipulating who wins the prizes and monies in his game shows, and mostly giving it to his friends and employees rather than random viewers, and much more. Now, I mentioned in my last video that MrBeast was actually caught in the same Discord server where Chris Tyson was openly sharing prawn to minors, and now we have allegedly confirmation that it was indeed the real Jimmy, and it is seemingly provable by searching the archives and seeing that his account is linked to the MrBeast gaming channel, which is not possible unless you own the channel and can log in. Meaning essentially MrBeast lied in his response, saying that he just became aware of Chris's actions in the past few days, when in reality he knew all along. As we know, he had the lollipop art hanging from his living room wall, and he was in the same server as Chris sending messages, and he was best friends with Chris for over a decade and defended him until the recent drama. Now it actually gets worse for MrBeast and Chris because 500,000 messages have been released to the public from that Discord server. Keep in mind, this is after Chris and his squad wiped out every message that they thought was incriminating, but there's still so many left. Moreover, Lava, one of the victims who was groomed by Chris, now recognizes that it was inappropriate and wrong what was happening in the server. So let's go over these messages and explore this insane rabbit hole. Here we have a tweet by Dramalert, a thread of all the weird things Chris Tyson allegedly said in the Discord with minors. She's only 14, damn. Okay, so these messages are from 2018. Somebody posts an attachment. Chris replies saying she's only 14, damn. And this is allegedly BB, which I'm not gonna say her name, otherwise my last video got age restricted and demonetized, completely suppressed when I said her name. So what did you think she was? 16 and legal in some states. Oof, of course. If she's 14, I'm 14. Chris allegedly sharing links to the famed lollipop artist Shadman, and Chris has linked the website. Chris the meme god, also referred to as Lollipop God, is back. Designated Lollipop, yes it's me, yeah you're back, ooh woo. What am I, a parent? Chris Tyson's alleged response to a request to delete an NSFW channel because there were minors in the Discord. I don't have any issue with the channel. What I have an issue with are minors that have access to said channel. Chris says, is there even a way to do that? Not really, no. So what do we do, lol? Remove it? No, people like it. Even if there was a way anyone can lie about their age. Yeah, true, and I mean, to be fair, the internet is full of prawn. Discord says if you can't regulate it, don't have one. It's the responsibility of the server owner to prevent minors from viewing prawn materials. Chris responds saying, what am I, a parent? Lol. I say we get rid of this because the fan base of Mr. Beast and Chris are mostly under 18. And Chris obviously completely ignored this and continued going with his absolute degenerate tendencies with minors. Chris says there's nothing more free than peeing in the shower facts, waterproof phone gang, and added an attachment of presumably his image. We only worship Jeebus around here. Challenge accepted. The god. Oh yeah, daddy Chris, that's a lot of moisturizer. Why are you in the shower? I don't know if this was a picture of Chris or something with minimal clothing, but this is bad. This is bad. Allegedly Chris Tyson role-playing. No, it is not. Buzzles your necky wecky. Fight me. Love you guys. Nuzzles pee-pee. Nah. Unzips pee-pee. Okay, Chris, you need to be locked up ASAP. Now, it gets really bad when you realize that Mr. Beast was also in the server sending messages. Mr. Beast and Chris Tyson Discord leaks. Mr. Beast allegedly complimenting Chris Tyson's pee-pee size in Chris's Discord server with minors. No, he's not. His pee-pee isn't big enough. I know. Mr. Beast, this is the actual Mr. Beast. No, I know his pee-pee size and it's huge. Beast, are you gay the moment you... Okay. I'll deep Chris PP. Haha, Mr. Beast joins in to comment on my PP size. I love it. And that's Chris. Vindication, Jake Franklin, Jake the Viking also tweeted out saying Jimmy knew. And then he says, I called it because these texts have been revealed. And it has been confirmed that it is actually Mr. Beast. It has been linked to his official account, as I mentioned. Oh Lord, it's going to be a long night. Okay, so I gotta mention a couple additional things that are happening on the side. Chris Tyson is being accused of SA by someone. I was SA by Ava Chris Tyson. Skina has come out with their story here. I'm not gonna go into it. You can go ahead and read it if you want. A lot of stuff going on here. I pretty much gotta censor all of this or YouTube's gonna nuke me again, which I don't want. He's done. This is the nail in the coffin accusation. Is anyone else not surprised? Now, it turns out because the situation got so huge, Chris Tyson's own sister has come out saying that Chris is faking being trans as a fetish. I'm his sibling. He, and yes, I use the correct pronoun, told me that he got fully aroused when he secretly stole my female clothes and put them on. He's deluded and disturbed, and it's 100% a fetish. He's narcissistic, and professionals have told him he needs a full psych eval. This would be absolutely groundbreaking if he was mocking the LGBT community by, pretending to be trans or something like that, but I can't confirm any of this. These are allegations from other people, right? So I'm just reporting on it. And before anyone says anything, yes, it is confirmed that is Chris's sister. Former Mr. Beast employee Jake the Viking says, after seeing all of this, I'm glad that they fired me. I think nobody wants to be involved with Mr. Beast anymore, and he's gonna have a really hard time hiring people anymore. Now we gotta move on to the Mr. Beast Games situation. Basically, Mr. Beast is doing an Amazon show called Beast Games, and it's essentially one of his videos, but on a very wide scale, right? And tons of people are coming out with so many allegations that the environment was incredibly unsafe, with allegedly people being denied medication, being beaten by other contestants, given very little food, some allegations that girls were tackled and assaulted by guys on the show with zero repercussions. Mr. Beast is a monster. Mr. Beast's alleged contestant speaks out, claims unfair teams and contestants being defressed after. Mr. Beast just wants to psychologically disturb people.
They eliminated 400 people the first day. Those 400 people, the majority of them were forced by the other team members to be on the specific team they were. Some were just about physically assaulted to be put onto one team, which ended up making it the weakest team, since it was a lot of elderly people, petite women, and people that they weren't willing to take on 6 guys that were surrounding them trying to take their vests so that they can actually be on that. Of the 400 people that left, the majority of them, I'd say at least half, are all extremely depressed. Mr. Beast is a monster, and the games that he does are really cruel and sick. There are a lot of updates that I'm gonna give. I made a video last night when I was prepared and planning on last night. It was supposed to be $1,000. That's nothing. 4 months. It was going to take 4 months to get to me, as Mr. Beast and his staff knew that I was homeless and had nothing when I went on the show, and I had to buy stuff for wardrobe to be on the show. Many people, sometimes they hadn't gotten their medication for 2 days. Some of it was epileptic medication, really vital, necessary medication.
Okay, so some people are saying that she might be exaggerating, you know, blowing it out of proportion, or she's just salty that she lost the game and she didn't win any money and she's a sore loser. Now, that could be the case, but considering she said she wants to game end herself, that would seem sort of serious. Also, you'd think that Mr. Beast would help out one of the sort of homeless contestants, seems like in line with his values, but apparently not. Now, the only reason I showed this reason is because there's also tons of other people coming out saying the same thing, including reporters who went to the location and nurses in nearby hospitals where Mr. Beast filmed, saying that there were people severely injured and the conditions were super inhumane, right? Where people were denied medication and food and proper hygiene. Now, a blast from the past for Rosanna Pansino, the YouTuber with like 15 million subs, who was complaining about Mr. Beast's hide and seek challenge. She also made 2 videos about this. Here is the first one.
I wanted to keep you guys updated on what I've been hearing about Mr. Beast's Beast games. Since I posted my video yesterday, I've pretty much been talking with more people involved with the show all day. At this point, I've lost track, but I think it's nearing like 100 people who have reached out to me with their stories. Each person has their own experience and their own opinions, but overall the stories that I'm hearing just break my heart. I have never heard of anything like this on any set. So today I want to read a statement from another contestant who shares many of the same experiences with the other stories that I'm hearing.
Okay, there's going to be a lot of reading. Feel free to skip this part, but I'll try to interject my commentary and let you know what I actually think. I was a contestant until the end. I also didn't accept their hush money. It was really bad. People were having seizures because they weren't getting medication, even though we were promised we would. It was 100% rigged and presented as though the games would be like Squid Games, basically a type of game show where all the games are at an even playing field. That was not at all the case. The games were about speed and strength. I assume this is similar to the Netflix show Physical 100, where you know, it's like physical challenges, right? So only the young athletic males were at an advantage over the women and elderly people that were casted. To make things worse, men started realizing they could take out the women without being eliminated. Guys started tackling and hitting women. 2 girls were tackled and passed out on the field and dragged off to continue filming. I saw people with broken bones, stitches, and most were women. This is straight out of an absolute horror show, and the fact that multiple people are coming out with this is absolutely insane. I'm really hoping some contestants come out who haven't signed NDAs and let us know if all of this is true or false, because this is an insane scandal. We were given maybe 400 calories a meal and only fed every 12 hours. Food would run out and people would fight, steal, and hoard food. What kind of sick game was this? I thought this was a regular Mr. Beast video, but they're fighting over food and water? Water was scarce and kept running out as well. I had to sit with a bloody pad for 2 days before I get undergarments and my reusable pads because I'm allergic to regular pads. We're also sleep deprived, only allowed to sleep 3 to 4 hours. We all slept on the floor on the stadium in a $10 sleeping bag. They offered anyone who lost $1,000 to sign away their rights to join any kind of class action lawsuit of any kind. That is an insane thing to even offer in the first place. Isn't that implying that you've already done something really wrong? I didn't sign, so I did not get the money. After the article came out and things started blowing up, they called everyone back and decided to offer an additional $1,000 per person to make up for the inconveniences. And we'll get to the article as well because that is yet another bombshell. They knew it was bad because they also offered to provide therapy sessions using their own insurance. And it wasn't Amazon Prime that called me, it was the Mr. Beast crew. So this therapy session would coincide with what that woman was saying about how she wanted to neck herself. I mean, initially I did think it was a bit far-fetched because it's a game show, but if what they're saying is true and you were beaten and starved, I mean, yeah, you would want to neck yourself and you'd need therapy sessions, right? I mean, this would be an insane story to make up by 10 different people at the same time. I mean, that's kind of crazy to me, so I'm inclined to believe at least some of this stuff happened. Possibly they're exaggerating, but at least a lot of the bad things did happen here. We were set up to fail, and when men started tackling people to get them out, nothing was done about it. They were not even eliminated. The game that had to do with the briefcase, it literally felt like Hunger Games, while Mr. Beast is standing on his podium, looking down, watching all of us peasants fight for a chance at $5 million. I know it's a game show, And even with the waiver, it's a company's responsibility to have safety protocols in place to try to prevent injuries. That is not what was happening here. The fact that there were nurses at the hospital in Las Vegas are also confirming all the injuries that happened is proof they did not have to sign an NDA. So this is what gives the most credibility to this situation, because even in the article it mentions that, yeah, the nurses are confirming these stories as well, because they were getting a sudden influx of injured people, and it was all coming from the Mr. Beast challenge, dude. And I think the reason this happened is because Mr. Beast is used to dealing with 100, 200 people at a time, maybe. And he went straight to 5,000 or something, like way more than he can handle. And, you know, he didn't have the staff, he didn't have the sort of team to handle all of this, and this absolutely blew up in his face. Here we got yet another contestant with another story. I was expecting for this competition to be hard, but I did not expect to endure what I did. It was a shit show, to say the least. I believe they were in over their heads and did not plan very well. Here are some of the things I experienced. No one was using a microphone to make announcements, so it was very hard to hear what production was saying. A lot of things got missed. I had to hear through the grapevine about certain things, like when they had Gatorade, when we could go to medical, and when they had snack bags. This just seems like a really poorly organized event that led to an absolute disaster, you know? They handed out undergarment bags to everyone alphabetically by last name. I did not receive my undergarments until the second day of filming. After the first competition, they hadn't fed us in a while and I was feeling lightheaded. I asked someone if they had anything to eat, and they told me to push through and basically suck it up. Oh, you want food, peasant? No, not here in the Mr. Beast. This is a dojo, all right? You don't get food, pal. On the first day, after 12 hours of having contacts in my eyes, I asked someone if I could go to medical to take them out, and they told me no. I witnessed 2 people that had seizures, and it took medical several minutes for them to get there. I'm assuming this happened because they did not have access to medication, but I could be completely wrong. Medics should have been on the field 24/7, ready to go at all times. Why are people having seizures at your event, Mr. Beast? What the heck? I heard people were being pushed and shoved by males. I received an email yesterday checking how they're going to check footage, and because they take violence seriously. They should have done this during the game and not after the fact. I would say most of the challenges were definitely geared towards strong and fast men. Yeah, I mean, if you got eliminated and then the next day you realized they cheated, that would be completely messed up and probably illegal. Like, because despite the fact that this is like a game show or whatever the hell, they have to follow certain rules, or you're just, I don't know, wasting people's time and essentially lying to them and breaking your contract. When all the contestants arrived back to the hotel, we were supposed to have flights booked for us to go home. I woke up the next day and with no flight information. With so many contestants trying to go home, I heard they would not have all the flights booked until a few days later. That is so messed up. I had to book my own flight and use money out of my own pocket because I couldn't wait that long because I had to return to work. They're going to reimburse us, but there's no telling when I will see the money. They gave out feastable chocolates. Oh yes, the 30 grams of sugar. Gotta load everyone up with some diabetes real quick. My group hoarded chocolate because we weren't sure when the next time they would feed us, and we were afraid we would get hungry. I mean, honestly, this stuff sounds straight out of a survival horror movie or something like that, where there's some evil game show lord who is messing with the peasants and shit like that. I don't know how much of this is legit, how much of this is confirmed, but I can't say there have been multiple people reporting the exact same thing with the nurses in the hospital, with the contestants.
The statement I just read doesn't even cover the half of what I'm hearing. I'm also waiting for confirmation that there were only 2 ambulances for well over 2,000 people, the contestants, including the entire crew. And I'm speaking with someone from the crew right now to get confirmation about how many people were on the crew.
Now here's a picture that I probably blurred. It's essentially somebody's leg that is badly bruised, and apparently they have broken bones after attending this Beast Games event or whatever, and they got brutally assaulted. Another contestant says no medications, no undergarments, despite supplying 5 days of only electrolytes were Gatorade handed out. Ran out of meals for people, water would run out, was not a safe space. Many of us knew it would be mentally challenging, but the danger we were put in and lack of care was unexpected. No clear communication between staff, making it worse. people are prepared to go into a Mr. Beast challenge. They obviously know it can be challenging because they've watched the videos, but they weren't there to be literally torture. You know, from some of these stories, if these are true, this is torture. All right, denying somebody food, water, medication, and basic sanitation is absolutely insane. One contestant noted production staff hired locally were treated poorly, with some working shifts in excess of 24 hours in a row. Medications such as inhalers, contact lenses, feminine hygiene products was surrendered, which caused concern among the production's medical staff. Yeah, that is really weird. Why are you confiscating medication? In like, what challenge will their inhaler possibly help them? Oh my god, you need to breathe? I'm sorry, no breathing allowed in a Mr. Beast challenge. Contestants were asked to give production team several pair of undergarments, which were not returned upon disqualification. That is crazy. Stealing people's underpants is nah. You think in my underwear we have beef for life? Okay, I'm sorry, that is crazy, bro. Mr. Beast representative says this information is inaccurate. What a great elaboration. It's just inaccurate, guys. Is Chris, even my friend, inaccurate? Just, yeah. Didn't know any of this, actually. Am I doing illegal lotteries on YouTube for children? Inaccurate, actually. A hospital employee told us, I'm aware of 3 or 4 hospital evacs today. Overnight shift said it was insane, so not sure if or how many hospital evacs were there. Production is a shit show and unprepared for the scale, making decisions as they go along. The bare bones medic staff on site is not adequate and were overwhelmed last night. They compete.
Hello there, my two viewers.
Hello everyone, in order to dual wield weapons, you first need to open up the main menu. Then from the main menu, you're going to click on the equipment tab. And then on the first row in these first 3 slots, you need to put a weapon in one of these slots. This is going to go on your right hand. So I'll select this first slot here. And then I'm going to choose the Lordsworn's Heavy Greatsword. That's going to go in my right hand, and then I'll click back, and now we need to put a weapon in the second row in one of these first 3 slots, and that's going to go in your left hand. Once again, I'll select the first box, and then I'm going to choose this Claymore Greatsword. And then I'll go back, and now you can see that we have a weapon in both the right hand and the left hand. And when we back out of the main menu, you can see we're holding a greatsword in both hands. And if you want to do your standard attacks while dual wielding these swords, you're going to need to press in left mouse click if you're on PC. And then for Xbox, that's going to be pressing in RB, and for PlayStation, that's pressing in R1. And then you'll just keep on pressing that in, and you're going to alternate between your hands until you finish the combo. And then this will vary depending on the types of weapons that you're dual wielding as well. And then if you want to do an alternate form of attack where you use both swords at the same time, on PC, you would press in right mouse click repeatedly. On Xbox, that'd be pressing in LB, and PlayStation, that'd be pressing in L1. So I'm just going to press in right mouse click now, and you can see I'm swinging both swords at the same time. And then a cool attack that I found out about, click now, that'd be pressing in LB and time. And then if you want to do an alternate form of attack where you use both swords at the same time, on PC, you would press in right mouse click repeatedly. On Xbox, that'd be pressing in LB, and PlayStation, that'd be pressing in L1. So I'm just going to press in right mouse click now, and you can see I'm swinging both swords at the same time. And then a cool attack that I found out about is you can press in your roll button. So on PC, that'd be pressing in space. On Xbox, that'd be pressing in B. And PlayStation, you press in circle, and make sure you're not moving any direction while you're doing this. So just stand still and then press in the roll button, and you'll backstep like that. Then after you do your backstep, you're going to press in right mouse click if you're on PC. On Xbox, you're going to press in LB, and PlayStation, you're going to press in L1. So I'll backstep and then press in right mouse click, and then I lunge forward with both blades at the same time. And I'll just do that one more time for you. And that's all there is to it. So if you have any questions at all,
at night. Let me know what you guys think about all of these Mr. Beast accusations. There's so many coming out. Stay tuned. There's even more stuff coming. I talked to Dogpack, one of the Mr. Beast employees behind the scenes.
you probably know more about Elden Ring's lore than you know about...
New Mr. Beast allegations have just dropped, and it's not looking good for Jimmy. So last time we talked about Dogpack.
Do you think attention is the most valuable currency in the world?
Well, of course. If you could post something and everyone in the world would watch it, you'd be the most powerful man on earth.
We're not promoting gambling. I think people are going to see this negative.
Very smart with your money. Throws away millions of dollars on YouTube videos is a gambler. Who would have thought?
Lottery for money.
Got to the point where he's gambling with people's lives.
You don't have to pay anything to enter legitimate.
How is this legal? I don't get it. It's a scam.
Hundreds of forged or fake signatures.
Ponzi schemes are great up until they just go bust.
Hi, I wanted to provide some context to this video. I'm a former Mr. Beast employee, and today I am alleging that the company rigged videos and did illegal lotteries and sold fake signatures. I would consider that fraud, okay? Thank you, enjoy the video. So this is part one into my investigation of Mr. Beast. I recorded this before the Chris stuff came out. I was also going to come out about the Chris stuff probably in part 2 or 3. I see a lot of people saying like, oh, if you knew.
3 weeks ago, I found myself deep in the pits of brain rot while grinding Valorant. My aim was off, my decisions were trash, and I felt like I was stuck in a loop of bad plays. Brain rot is that mental fatigue where you're playing on autopilot, just queuing up because you feel you have to, not because you want to. It drains you mentally and physically, and it's a huge problem if you're trying to improve. In this video, I'll share how I healed my brain rot in just one day, so you can get back to playing your best. I'm Kimi, the manliest man with a girl's name. And trust me, this is the no BS guide you need. So,
Hi, I wanted to provide some context to this video. I'm a former Mr. Beast employee, and today I am alleging that the company rigged videos and did illegal lotteries and sold fake signatures. I would consider that fraud, okay? Thank you, enjoy the video.
Albeit, he does look like his source is a meth pipe, but let's trust him. Let's check it out. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Also, obviously, you have to be 18 to play the lottery. It's gambling. Mr. Beast isn't just promoting gambling to children here. He's running the casino.
God damn, my respect for Mr. Beast just went up, bro, just like me, for real, for real.
Baba Bowie. WestJet.
What is up, Cody Coes and Dirty Hose? WestJet 605, Venezuelan trillionaire here, and today we're talking about Mr. Beast, who's apparently a fraud. Oh, and literally 0% of you are subscribed, so be sure to subscribe. Yeah. The video in question today is I worked for Mr. Beast. He's a fraud. This was uploaded by Dogpack404, who was confirmed to be a Mr. Beast employee in our previous video, actually. Honestly, suggest.
anyway, I'm not about that. Relax.